All right, I'm here with Gav Prat. He is the head of strength and conditioning at the UFC Performance Institute. Thanks for coming by, Gav.
My pleasure, mate.
You're my new best friend in the company.
Yeah, we've got this little relationship we got building.
So let's tell the story. I posted that Instagram reel from a podcast that I was on saying I wanted to be fit well into my life. I'm 40 now. It's kind of this rite of passage almost, and it's like you can kind of go in one direction or the other. You can kind of start letting it go, or you can kind of say, no, I'm going to really chase being the healthiest version of myself. And so I put something out, and you DM'd me and said, hey, come by the UFC PI. Let's get some training in. Let's get you on a program so that you can achieve all those goals.
That's it.
Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure, because I feel that. Like, I'm in my 40s, and I understand there's a thing that happens to your body around 30, 35, and it progressively starts hurting more. And I just think that there's ways around that, but sometimes guidance will help, and so it makes sense to me to help out.
I don't like to use the phrase hurting more, but recovering slower. Right? We could say that.
Glass half full.
There we
version.
go.
I like
what's your background, Gav?
In terms of strength and conditioning, it's the first thing that I did when I left school. In Australia, you have exams that help you get into a university course. I didn't do those. Scholastically wasn't my favoured thing, so I went to a 1 year college course, like a TAFE sort of thing.
Like certification.
Certification, health and fitness, and then I've been doing that since. And a way through that, I actually studied broadcasting and radio and television. Yeah. So I took a side journey, and I was a TV presenter for about 10 years in Australia.
I didn't know that.
I know. But I don't tell many people. That's just what I do.
So what did you want to do with that?
Well,
I mean, you were.
Yeah. I worked in a number of programs. They were sort of low key, but a lot of it was around tourism. Started off in mining because that's a big thing in Australia. But that wasn't really too exciting for me. But hey, you got the gig.
Yes.
Got to do the yards, and then that turned into a series on displaying towns around Australia and what they did for the community and tourism.
No, nice. So like kind of like a travel channel type of thing.
Yep.
Like where,
Yep.
When did surfing come in?
Surfing was something that came in probably in the last year or two of high school. I really was drawn to the ocean, even though I lived inland, and a lot of my family was based in Margaret River area, which is some fantastic surf down there, world class. And so we would go down there for holidays, and it sort of drove that intent for me to get in the ocean, and then I just fell in love with it and been doing that since.
So were you ever on the path to be a pro surfer?
No.
Oh, just purely
just through
a passion, a hobby.
Correct.
And you still never stop that?
No.
I mean, for those who don't know, Gavin will just jet down to LA on a weekend, go surfing.
We just went with Dr. Duncan French, actually. We just went down to Texas, Waco.
I saw that video
for
on
the wave pool, and that was literally a fly out Saturday, come back Sunday night. Trip. Like
that's what surfing means too.
It's my medication.
It's like how people get obsessed with golf and they'll spend whatever, fly wherever to go play golf, and you'll do that for surfing.
Absolutely.
How do you surf in Waco, Texas?
So they've got a man-made pool there, and that's the new thing in surfing is that they'll just plant these pools around the place, and you can just spend an hour surfing this particular wave. Now we're actually getting one in Vegas in 2025.
I was going to say, I mean, it's a matter. I'm surprised it's not here yet.
Right, it's coming. It's been signed. It's happening 2025 supposedly.
Okay.
So,
well, I know where to find you then. What made you want to be a trainer, or like what made you want to help other people as a career?
I think a lot of strength and conditioning coaches start off when they're younger wanting to be an athlete, and for whatever reason, if that falls through, it doesn't come to fruition, you've always been someone that tries to get the most out of yourself. And so that was me. I might not have been the most talented player, but I would always make teams because I would work harder than someone else. And so that part of that is in the gym. So I fell in love with that work ethic in the gym, and then it just turned out that same thing happened. Didn't make it in my career, but then pushed into helping others make it in their career, and I really enjoy that aspect of it.
When did you find out, or when did you realize how much you liked it, that like you could make a life around it?
Great question. I think probably when I moved to China, I realized that I was working with elite athletes, and that this was sustainable for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you get into it, you mentioned China. When you moved to China, was that to work for the Olympic program?
Part of the Olympic program.
Yeah,
yes.
Their surfing team.
That was secondary. So the first
Okay.
one was in Shanghai, and I was
Okay.
working with a bunch of different Olympic-based sports. When that contract ended, it was with the surfing program, and that was then after that I went to the UFC over there.
You had a little smirk when you said Olympic-based sports. Like, were you doing like archery programs, and like what were the obscure sports that you're training for?
Modern pentathlon,
Okay.
boxing, basketball, handball, fencing, rhythmic gymnastics.
Right.
So name it, kind of thing.
A wide swath of athletes.
Yes.
Now, for one of my questions, and we'll get into this a little bit because I want to talk about strength and conditioning principles so that I can help anybody watching or listening so that they can improve. Like, when your concepts come in, when you're helping out a rhythmic gymnast and a basketball player, are the concepts that you work on the same?
Yes and no. So to clarify that, you're looking at what the athlete needs to underpin their sport. So, for example, this is the no part. Rhythm gymnastics don't need any flexibility training from me. They're
Right.
already hugely flexible. Basketball, however, might, but it's still under the considerations you need to look at. So
Okay.
you're kind of just looking at all the considerations across sports and then going yes or no, yes or no.
Is it simpler than it seems?
Yes. In some ways, the principles are very simple.
Yeah.
It's just trying to stick to those principles in the environments you're given. That's the difficult part.
Okay. So for MMA athletes, as we kind of steer this toward the UFC, what are the principles that you work on with UFC fighters?
We need to make sure that we individualize their strength and conditioning program for what they need, because ultimately that athlete is the one walking into the cage on their own. It's not a team sport, and they're not playing the same roles. So you have different stylistic backgrounds. Have you come from a wrestling background or a striking background? We've got to consider that. Do you want to use those efficient skills or the elite skills that you have to win a fight, or do you want to work on your deficiencies in the off-camp and then focus on the things that will win you the fight?
Right.
How do you want to tactically play this?
And whose decision is that?
That's all of ours. So we do diagnostics at the UFC Performance Institute to highlight where the athlete is currently, and then we have that discussion with them about, so where do you want to go from here?
Right.
Like, you and your coach, this is your decision as fighters, and we can give you the data and the information to help make the decision, and we can give you our professional recommendation, but ultimately we're just going to back you up with what
Yeah.
you would like to do.
Big picture concept. What do you think is more valuable, making your strength stronger or working on your weaknesses?
I think timing of that is crucial. I believe personally that in the off camp you'd focus on your deficiencies, and then in the fight camp you'd want to focus on the things that will help you win.
Okay.
Your strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a strength and conditioning point of view, how do you kind of come up with that? Because it's very easy. It's like strength and conditioning. It's like, okay, I'm good at shoulder presses, but I'm not very good at ab work, right? Is that like where you come in with trying to make a strength stronger? Is it simply like adding more weight to your lifts and different things like that, or does it go a lot deeper than that?
Yeah, it would go deeper than that. So we do profiling, and this actually indicates to us, if you were to come in, we would be able to give you the profiling diagnostics we do, and we could tell you whether you're strong enough for your specific weight division against the other fighters in your weight division. We won't obviously name names. It's highly confidential with what we do, but we can tell you where you sit. So you might be looking at, there's three factors. There's strength, power, and velocity. And they're the things you need to think about. Strength, or maximal strength, is how much you can lift. It doesn't have to be fast. It's just a heavy load. Think of it that way. Velocity, or speed in some ways, is how fast you can move things. Power is the equation of both of those two things.
Okay.
Right? So we all have power. We all express power. But are you expressing power from the fact you are really strong, or are you expressing power because you're really fast?
Right.
And now we would go about saying, well, it's actually because you're fast, Fitzy. Do you want to keep getting faster and make that weapon even stronger, or do you want to increase some of that strength so that that underpins everything that you do, and then that power equation increases even more? Does that make sense?
Yes, and then it would be up to me to be like, I want to be more powerful because I'm stronger, or I want to be more powerful because I'm faster.
Yeah.
Again, is there a perfect equation? Because if you take an MMA athlete, this week Max Holloway's fighting. Very quick. Not known as a powerful guy. Not a lot of knockdowns, but very quick, striking in volume. Like, how do you view it in terms of, is there a proper place on the continuum to get to, and what is that?
Yeah, I mean, from that example, obviously Max is the champion, and there's nothing, I'm not going to tell him what to do, but basically, if you wanted to improve that knockout power, then in the off camp, you'd be focusing on having that strength, and then as you get closer to the fight, you'd want to express that faster. Right? And so that could be the way that you would approach that. It wouldn't be doing strength the whole way through. Yeah. It sort of underpins the end result. So you're still fast as hell.
Right.
But now you've got a little bit of iron behind the
Well, is there any concern with fighters when they say, I'm really fast, I don't want to lose that?
Yeah, there's definitely a concern about it. But in terms of physiology, if you've got a really good strength and conditioning program in place, that shouldn't affect your speed.
Right. Now, your strength and conditioning, you drew me up a program. It's not big on conditioning. Really, you just gave me strength, right? Like, how do you break down? I asked Felder one time, I was like, are you still doing strength and conditioning? This was like when he was kind of retired, but unsure. And, and I'm like, are you still doing strength and conditioning? He says, well, I'm doing a hell of a lot of conditioning because he's a triathlete now. So conditioning is basically cardio, right? Is that kind of the equally thing to say? Where do you fall on that? Like, what's important?
So conditioning is hugely important. And there's different ways that you can look at conditioning. The way that we approach it is that you can look at it from a cardiorespiratory point of view. So think of being on a bike at a low resistance level, so your legs aren't burning out too much. You're really just working on that cardiorespiratory, your heart and your lung function.
Yeah.
But then some of the things I've given you, such as using some kettlebells for high repetitions, maybe in the gym you can use sleds, things like that.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at your peripheral or the neuromuscular component. So your heart rate doesn't go too high. It increases, but your muscles fatigue quite a bit. And that's that muscular endurance. If we have that capability, we can now add in a little bit more of the cardiorespiratory component.
Got it.
You got a new program coming up.
I do have a new program. So
yeah.
I want to plug your website, gcpfitness.com.au.
Correct.
Yeah, gcpfitness.com.au. If you want a program from Gavin Prat, UFC strength and conditioning head coach, and you're online giving programs, I want to build that I want to get more into that, and I have a story to tell at the end.
Yes, brilliant.
About some examples that I've had in my 5 weeks working with Gavin, and we're just getting started. What a generous thing. So what you're saying is my conditioning with the program that we're doing now is like kettlebell swings counts as conditioning, but it's both.
Because it's quite high rep, usually with the kettlebell swings, it's with something as well, right?
Right.
Yeah, so there's a number of different exercises we've put in. You could term it metabolic conditioning.
Yeah.
It's basically getting your muscles and your heart rate used to that longer duration activity, and that's going to help increase your metabolism over time, but also get your heart rate used to working. So the next phase is a step up. That's how we do it.
So because conditioning to me, I would always just think bike, long runs on a treadmill, all that sort of stuff. Do you think that long runs on a treadmill of like 45 minutes to an hour, it's not a waste of time, but how do you feel about long, steady state cardio?
It's fine. It's got its place. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's ways. So we talk about hypertrophy of the heart or the left ventricle, which helps push out that blood. And obviously this is not my expertise, but this is the basics of it.
Yeah.
Is that we're trying to increase the ability of that elastic component of your heart to increase the blood volume and then increase that output as well to circulate that oxygen around your body. Right. So that's what the steady state does.
Yeah.
And then you have that high intensity interval training, which is also very popular. And that's just working your body in a different way. So both of them have their place.
Yeah. What do you think is the most overrated concept in fitness right now?
I've been asked this question a few times, and it's difficult to answer, but I think the hardest thing to deal with is social media and the things that look cool but actually don't have a purpose. So, or explained as having the wrong purpose. That one frustrates me a lot. So for us, it's a lot of sport-specific movements.
Right.
you're emulating the sport in the S&C room, so therefore it is beneficial for the athlete. But that's not certainly always the case. In fact, sometimes you might be damaging a technique or the technical side of the movement.
Like what? Like, give me an example.
So heavy dumbbell shadow boxing.
So holding on to dumbbells, shadow
Yeah,
boxing.
but heavy. So you can use little things. There's
egg weights.
Yep,
sure.
perfect. They're fantastic. Like they're 0.5 kilos or something like that.
Yeah.
They're not much, just enough to potentiate the body. But as soon as you've got too much weight in those hands, the angle of your punch is going to be different, and so is the retraction of your punch. So are you repeating good patterns?
Right.
Why are you using it? It's just to get endurance in your shoulders. Well, if that's all it is, then that's fine. But don't tell me that something is for a particular reason when it's probably not.
So once again, the message is social media, more harm than good.
Well, some harm and some good. Let's go with that nice blanket statement, mate. Yeah.
I mean, what do you see out there that's like, where you just, I mean, other than, are there more examples where you're just like,
Yeah,
face palm because you're like, I can't believe this is out there and it has a movement behind it.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
The thing with me is whenever I see that stuff on social media, I will just scroll past it because of what it does to my soul. So I'd prefer, if I'm on social media, I'm going on there for a laugh. I don't want to look at work-related things, and because they do bug me a bit. But hey, if people buy into what you're doing, if that's part of the battle, I think that you're probably doing okay. If the athlete believes it, go for it.
In terms of build or burn, right? It's the two phases in bodybuilding, right? You're either building up your muscle or you're cutting off the fat. Where do you fall on that equation?
For general or
general
for
fitness,
athletes?
for somebody like me,
Yeah.
For somebody out there listening, for somebody out there watching.
Yeah.
Should they focus on building or should they focus on burning?
Well, because there's a lot of talk about you can't do both at the same time. But time and time again, it's proven that you can.
You can.
It's just how far do you want to go with both of them? Does that make sense? So you can't go to the ultimate levels of putting on mass if you're also going to be cutting at the same time.
Got it.
For the physique that most general populations want, I think you can do both at the same time.
And you should do both.
Both at the same time because after all, we are looking at health, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to lose our capacity to be fit from a cardiorespiratory perspective, but we don't want to lose muscle mass too much either because, weak things break. We increase our injury risk.
Yeah.
Over the age of 30 to 35, we start losing lean muscle mass if we don't use it by about 8% per year or something crazy like that. So, I think the combination is exactly what most people need.
What do you focus on? You're 43?
Mm-hmm.
What do you focus on for your own fitness?
Both.
Yeah, what are the concepts that you think really help you that are pretty universal?
Do things I enjoy, first of all, because I'll keep doing them that way.
Yeah.
Secondly, resistance training probably 2 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
I'll do kickboxing 2 to 3 times a week, and then potentially some pure cardio. So today I just went for a run outdoors because it was a nice day.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously for me surfing when I can. But
Sure.
Yeah.
The play aspect though is important.
Yeah.
Right? Like do something that you love to do that gets your heart going. You'll always do it.
Always do. And are you learning something? So for me, when I do pad work, I'm trying to get better at something.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a progressive drive as well. Same thing with surfing. I'm always trying to get better at it, new experiences. The weight room for me, obviously I'm really familiar with, so I'll actually use that to trial exercises and metabolic conditioning for athletes or my clients. I'll be like, that was a good one. I'll give that to Fitzy next week. So, so that's more where I attack my strength and conditioning because at the moment I've just had a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't train in the morning. I can't train at night. So I've got 30 minutes a day where I have to get after it.
Dude, that is such a big concept. And I'm the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Baby's 10 months. Yours is what, 5 months? 5 months? I've learned a big problem for me over the years was if I couldn't get in 45 to like an hour and 15 and have some time to get into it, have some time to come out of it, all of a sudden it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was just like, well, then what's the point?
What's the point? And, that's a great point, Fitzy, because a lot of people will set early goals of I'm going to do 5 sessions a week for 1 hour. And that's too much. set 3 sessions a week for 30 minutes because you'll tick that box.
Yes.
And then you'll do it again next week. And maybe it goes to 45 minutes. And that's great. Like, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But set those early goals smaller because you'll achieve them. And that means you'll keep going. And that's the challenge. I've actually only set myself 20 minutes a day. And I'll end up doing 30 or 35. And it's like, oh, I'm into it now.
That's what you did for me.
Yeah.
When you gave me the first part of the program, the first day, I was just like, that was easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't, there were some challenging aspects to it, but I was like, I could do that.
I could do that.
3 times a week with a rest day in between. I could find time for that. And if I can't, shame on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what helps too is you do enough of those, it builds the habit where you don't want to miss it.
That's it, mate.
And then
That's it.
Then you're off and running.
Then you're in.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it
My
is.
James Clear habit. I'm so obsessed with Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yes.
And so what I was doing earlier this year, which actually helped me, I called it micro-dosing exercise.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just super busy, baby boys, not sleep, whatever. I was like, I need to do 10 push-ups a day, 1 pull-up a day. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't miss a day. That got me off and running in January. And it helped, honestly, because I was like, at the end of a month, that's 300-something push-ups. If I just let it slide, I do 0.
That's right.
And it seems silly in the time to do 10 push-ups a day and just be like, cool, I got a workout in. And also with pull-ups, because I can't really bang out pull-ups. But if I can do 1 a day, that'll build something. That'll do something.
It's a start, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a box ticker.
Yes.
You're getting it done. You're feeling like you've achieved something, and then you're going to be more likely to do again the next day.
What do you think UFC fighters do in the gym, and I know they do many different things, that crosses over that a normal guy like I could benefit from? The concepts that they use, that you give them from a strength and conditioning perspective.
Plenty. Like, the thing that we need to remember is just because they're a world-class athlete in the UFC doesn't mean that they're a world-class athlete in the gym. There's 2 different. So some athletes I've trained have never used strength and conditioning before.
Like who?
And no, I ain't telling
Come on.
confidentiality, my friend. But yeah, that's to me that's incredible.
I brought you in to spill all the dirt.
Yeah.
This goes against it.
Wrong guy.
So they come in. They're MMA fighters, UFC fighters. You're saying fighters in the UFC have never done a strength and conditioning program. Some of them. They just purely have done jiu-jitsu to a high level, martial arts. I mean, it's certainly a workout and a strength workout on its own.
Exactly.
So then what do you focus on with them? The same way that you'd focus on a new person that's like, you know what? I want to start doing something for myself.
We need to make sure that movement is working in the way that it should be working. So can you squat well? Can you press well? Can you pull, hinge, lunge, all the real basic movements, and then things from there get more complex, or you add more load, or that's when you play around with the methodology of things. So let's get the basics down pat first and get a general strength, then we'll go on to the next phase and go, all right, where are we at now? Do we need to work on more sport specific physiology rather than movements? The physiology is sport specific, and then we can start looking at really focusing on whether it's those deficiencies or strengths that you have as an athlete and where we want to take that.
When you built me the program, you didn't have a focus on nutrition. And I know that's not your main avenue. You're married to what? A nutritionist?
Yes. Sports dietitian.
Yeah. So, and that's certainly part of your business, right? GCP Fitness, you can do that too. Was that a calculated thing for me, just saying, do this program? Don't worry about too much right now.
Yeah.
Was that a calculated thing?
Yeah. When I've worked with general populations, which I've done quite a lot of over the years, when there's too many things to think about, we go back to that comment you made before, it's all just thrown in the trash can. If I don't get my nutrition, what's the point of training? I might as well not do that either. So to me, it's one step at a time. And to be honest, when people start putting in the hard yards or start working hard, they actually just generally eat better anyway. Because they're like, why am I doing all this stuff and then eating this shit? I've got to try and work along and make sure that I get rewarded for my effort and start eating a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it tends to happen.
Yeah. And then down the road, you kind of let it take care of itself.
Yeah. And then we can start looking at things because you've already got one part of that equation dialed in, which is your exercise. It's like, okay, now let's start touching a little bit more with the nutritional side of things.
Do you and your wife ever talk about what's more important?
No.
That's the age-old question, right? Abs are made in the kitchen.
Right.
Which is true. And again, I have a good story coming up, but yeah, the exercise, I don't know, they're both habits that ultimately are going to help you out in the long run. Lead
Absolutely.
to a longer, healthier life.
It's sort of like that equation I was talking about for power, right?
Mhm.
You got two components.
Yeah.
It's like to get the body composition that you want, it is definitely going to be strength and fitness plus nutrition on the other side. And
Right.
so if you can get them both right, that's when you get your ideal body composition. But if one of them falls a little bit, maybe you can hang in there, but you probably won't be in your peak condition.
Right.
And you'll know it.
How do you build a program for the general population? Where do you start, like in terms of as you break it down in a simple fashion?
Sure. There's a really good acronym, the FIT principle.
FIT principle,
FIT
FIT.
principle. Yeah, so frequency, intensity, time, and type. And so what we're looking at there is frequency is how many sessions should you be doing per week. Should be doing anywhere from 2 to 3 sessions. Then you go to intensity. What intensity? Well, there's two types of intensity. There's if you had a heart rate monitor on,
Yep.
what would you be working at? So more cardiorespiratory. You're looking at anywhere from 60 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. But you could also look at intensity from a strength perspective. So if you could lift 1 rep, the heaviest rep you should be lifting, then anywhere from 65 to 85% of your 1RM is a great place to be for those strength sessions. Okay. If you don't know what your 1 repetition max is, you can use another technique called repetitions in reserve, and that's one I like to use. So if I said to you, Fitzy, after your 3rd set of push-ups, let's use dumbbells, of dumbbell bench press, how many more could you have done?
Got it.
Right? It should be about 2 to 3.
Okay.
If you say 4 plus, it's too light. You've got to increase your weight.
Yeah.
If you say, I think I might have just got 1, if you're an early stage trainer, then that's probably a bit too heavy. If you've done 1 or 2 programs, that's perfect.
Okay.
So there's a couple of ways there.
And that's how to measure intensity.
When it comes to load,
Got it.
such as strength, yeah. And then you've got time. So how long should your sessions be? 20 to 60 minutes each time.
Okay.
Remember the frequency. So you get 20 to 60 minutes for that frequency that we talked about at the start,
Right.
which is 2 to 3 times a week.
Yep.
And then the type, that's where you're looking at things like cardiovascular or resistance training to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you follow that basic principle, that's how you would structure it as a real low key. But if you said to me, I want 4 sessions a week, and I know that you could do that, there's no harm in doing that, right?
Right.
These are minimal standards.
Yeah. I came to you with very broad principles on what I wanted to do. I think like a lot of people, wanted to look a little better, wanted to have some good health, build up some strength. I was an athlete in high school. It's obviously been a long time since I was an athlete, but I still like to think of myself as an athlete. I think a lot of people think that way too. What was your thought when drawing up a program for a 40-year-old dad of 2 in the suburbs?
Sure. What was the first thing I asked for from you?
The equipment list that I had.
Yeah. So now
like the weights, the equipment that was accessible to me.
To me, that's essential. Like the space that you're working in, the things that you have availability to, I'm going to make it work for that.
Right.
Because why would I give you a barbell bench press if you didn't have a barbell? You're like, well, I can't do it, so I'm not doing any of it.
Yeah.
So now that I have the equipment and the space, I can make it specific to your environment. Right. Now that's going to make you even more interested because you're like, well, I got all of that here. He's actually made it for me personally.
Yes.
So I should be doing this.
Yes.
So that's the buy-in component straight away. Secondly, I'm looking ahead. Where do I want to get you to? I know your goal, and I know that goals take time to reach. So what does that sort of, just before you get to that goal and we go, hey, you've already ticked that off, what's your next goal? What's that last little phase look like for you to get to that end peak? And then I'll work backwards from there. So right now, if you think of it like a pyramid, we're at the base of the pyramid. The next phase will build on this. It's called phase potentiation.
Okay.
So basically, I'm building out this base. I'm getting you moving well. I'm getting your base fitness, base strength. Now we start getting a bit more specific, maybe a bit more intensity to it. And we keep building and building. And each program will feel almost the same because I'm challenging you to your next level.
Got the next one, yeah. What is my goal? I never really told you a specific goal.
I just know what your goal is, mate. You're over 40. You want to get in great shape. You want to feel awesome about yourself, and it's the same goal for most of us,
Look
right?
good in the bathing suit,
Look
right?
good. It's summer. We're coming up to summer, but yeah.
All right, so here's the story as we wrap this up, and I want to ask you a question on this. Why? This is very important as to why lifting weights, resistance training is very important. Because I hadn't done it in a while, to be honest with you. Not a specific program. I'd swing a kettlebell here and there. I'd go for a run, but I wasn't. You gave me a program that was mostly superset based, specific rest intervals, like do this set, rest 30 seconds, do the next one. If you're just floating around a gym, you won't do that, right? If you don't have a program, which is kind of what I was operating on. But late last year, I did a weight loss challenge. Saif Saud, MMA coach, Fortis MMA, challenged me to lose weight. I did. I took off like 16 pounds in 3 weeks. Then I got, some of it was weight cut. Last 3 pounds were weight cut. then I, kind of did the same thing over December. And, I was sitting there, I was like 200 to 205 pounds, like feeling good, right? But I didn't do it by lifting or, doing a lot of strength and conditioning program. I did it by just super dialing in the diet, clean salads, cauliflower, rice, veggies, oatmeal, all that stuff. And the only people who told me I looked better were the people that knew I was losing weight. They'd be like, yo, you're coming down. You're looking skinny, Oh, yeah, whatever. People that knew I was in this challenge, and I told a lot of people to kind of help my accountability,
Sure.
They knew that I was losing weight. When I started your program, which was very basic, right? It's like not heavy weights. 35 pounds is the heaviest dumbbells that I have at my house.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of supersets with 20 pound, 15 pound stuff, push-ups, basic stuff.
Very.
I started that program 3 times a week, very basic movements, not pushing a lot of weight. And so many other people were telling me how much better I looked.
Wow.
Like right away.
Wow.
And I wasn't even eating well. They're like, you've lost weight. And I'm like, actually, I've gained weight. Like I wasn't eating well. It was January. And I'm still working on that part of the equation for this program. I just, I'll just snack. I'll get to like 4:30 in the afternoon. I'll be good until 4:30, and then
Classic.
I'm just like, the hell with it.
Classic,
right?
yeah.
Right? Decision fatigue rears its head.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks volumes, and that's why I wanted to tell you and tell people out there, whether you want to get a program from Gav on his website or get up motivation to get a program or start lifting on some sort of program instead of just I'll work out when I can, I'll do some push-ups when I can. People were telling me like, have you lost weight? You look better. Like you're lean. Like, what are you doing? And I'm just like, I'm kind of eating like shit, but I'm lifting weights 3 times a week. And like, why is that? Like, what's the principle that worked there where instead of being 205, I'm like 218, 220. Sad to say, put all that weight cut weight back on. But, like what's the concept there? Like what's at play? Where I look leaner, even though I'm not leaner.
Well, first of all, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think that's awesome that you've done that because you're increasing your lean muscle, right? Lean muscle gives you that shape. Mm-hmm. So I always sort of describe it, those vacuum seal bags?
Yes.
Yeah. So at the moment, we haven't quite sucked out the air from the vacuum seal bag, but you've filled it full of clothes because that's your muscles that are starting to take shape.
Okay.
So if you also start looking at your nutrition, that vacuum seal starts to work, and then basically the outer layer or your subcutaneous fat will start to decrease, and that's what will give you that toned look that people talk about, right?
Yes.
Tone is just showing the definition of the muscles that you've developed through weight training.
Yes.
It
apparently, it doesn't take that long. I mean, it takes a lifetime, in a career to kind of build a physique. But if you just start, like, the effects kind of happen.
They do.
Pretty soon.
And especially if you haven't done something.
Yes.
So the basically the curve to get to that point is so much faster if you haven't been someone that has been doing weight training much. Like you'll see a response much faster.
Yeah.
And it's likewise with someone who has trained a long time. They'll actually tend to have more to lose in terms of their strength output and things like that. But the fact that you're seeing such changes, this is where you come into another principle. So it's called basically the general adaptation syndrome, or the SAID principle as well. So these principles are around SAID principle is specific adaptations to imposed demands. Okay. So you're basically getting better at the demands that you're giving your body. So you're getting stronger because you're trying to lift heavier things.
Got it.
You're using that through something called progressive overload. If I just said 3 sets of 8 for 5 weeks, by the second week, you'd be like, it's too light now.
Yeah.
You go stronger.
Yeah.
That's progressive overload. Very simple, right?
Yeah.
So it's a simple theory and method, but it works, right?
It does work because, like I said, 35-pound heaviest dumbbells. So it's like you just add on the reps. Instead of doing 12, do 15.
And that's a really good point, because some people don't have a rack full of more weight to go to. So another way to do that is to increase the reps. Your body doesn't know if it's lifting 35 or 50 pounds. It just knows that 1 to 2 reps in reserve. That's what it knows.
Because for a long time, people were like, should I go heavy in 5 reps?
Yeah.
And it turns out you can do it both ways.
You can. For hypertrophy, which is putting on lean muscle mass,
Yeah.
you can. When it comes to maximal strength, you need to lift above 85% of your 1RM
Yeah.
because that's pure neural strength. But in terms of changing your muscle mass and your lean mass, they're called stimulating reps. And usually that's going to be in those last 3 to 5 reps of a set. So
Yes.
if you did 6 reps and at the end of those 6 reps you said, I probably could have done 1 or 2 more, that's the same effectively as saying 12 to 15 reps with 1 or 2 more.
There you go.
Right? We
Yeah.
need to get to those reps in reserve and to push yourself. And that's a bit of bro science from back in the day as well, with Schwarzenegger days and stuff. That's just how they used to lift a lot of the time. And it works.
Gav Prat, thanks for coming in and doing this.
My pleasure. Yeah, great to be on, mate.
I'll think of some more concepts so we can get you back on the show. But go to gcpfitness.com.au
Very important part.
for Gav Pratt's programs. You can book them. You can send him a picture, a video of what you have at your house, and he will draw you up a program. And I'm telling you, it works. He's going to get me to 10% body fat. Is that possible?
Let's go.
We can do that. Gav Pratt, thanks.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for watching Fitz Nation on the UFC Fight Pass YouTube channel. You know, my bosses would love it if you hit that UFC Fight Pass logo and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.